Hi, I'm Max Keiser. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. Time now to go to Chicago and speak with Mish Shedlock of globaleconomicanalysis.blogspot.com. Just search for Mish. As well as blogging, Mish is a registered investment advisor for Sitka Pacific Asset Management. Mish, welcome to the Keiser Report.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be back on the show, Max.
Now let's talk about Europe, Mish. You talk about the rise of the Borg technocrats. Tell us about it.
I wish I had invented that term. I didn't. It came from a Financial Times article, but it's appropriate here. You know, we're talking about. So we've had two failed governments now. We've had a failed government in Italy. We've had a failed government in Greece. So that, you know, they're going to replace these guys not with new elections, not right now anyway. They're going to replace these guys with temporary technocrats. Now, these technocrats are supposed to be all knowledgeable and all powerful, and they're going to get things done. And the bond market slapped them in the face today. You know, literally, that's what happened. This whack-a-mole strategy, which I've talked about, where, you know, the ECB comes in and temporarily buys up bonds of the sovereign country that's failing. Well, you know, what are they going to do here? We've got Italy, Spain, France, Portugal, all failing here at once. You know, what are these technocrats going to do? You know, the bond market is essentially saying no to the technocrats here right off the bat. Test the fire.
All right, now, on your blog, you said something interesting lately. You said that Greek depositors, they should pull every cent of their money out of the Greek banks immediately. So talk us through that a little bit, Mish.
Oh, absolutely. And I posted a chart. It came from my friend Steen at Saxo Bank in Copenhagen. He showed a chart of deposits, and we're seeing a slow, steady drip in Italy, but a major drip in people pulling money out of their savings accounts and checking accounts in Greece. And I said that people ought to do it. I did a post on my blog that said, you know, essentially Christmas is the time of year in which we see these kinds of defaults, restructurings, and bank closings. And Argentina did it in 2001, where they, you know, closed the bank, revalue the currency. Now, if depositors leave their money in banks, and Greece goes back to the drachma, and we have a revaluation 40, 50, 60, 70%, who knows, lower, these people are going to get annoyed. The safe and sane thing to do is for everyone to pull their money out, so they have it in euros. Now, if everyone did that, what would happen? It's going to bring upon the very collapse here. So there's a genuine chance here of sometime this Christmas holiday season or beginning of the year, New Year's, of Greece government suspending withdrawals, opening up the next day, and you know, boom, you don't have euros anymore, you got drachmas.
Okay, so you're saying historically there is some precedent for this. You're not making an outright prediction, but you're saying that given this level of panic amongst depositors, and we're seeing a run on the bank, that one of the next steps could be some kind of bank holiday. And so I guess there is some chance of that in the Eurozone. And of course, the big question people want to know is they would look at the euro versus the U.S. dollar. You've been pretty constructive about the U.S. dollar for a while now. I would imagine that you don't see anything in the Eurozone to change your opinion on that.
Oh, absolutely not. And it's not that I'm in love with the U.S. dollar. All these fiat currencies are doomed. But the question is, what time frame here? The problem in European banks right now is greater than the problems in U.S. banks. So this is a relative thing. It's not that I'm really all that fond of the U.S. dollar. I'm pretty fond of gold, as you know, and I have been for actually 6 years or so. So I expect gold to do well. I just expect that if we see this breakup of the Eurozone, which I think is inevitable, I think that the euro goes back to parity with the U.S. dollar. That's a 30% haircut. That's pretty significant if you ask me. Now, the time frame, it really all depends on how this happens, Max. The smart thing to do would be for Germany to get out of the Eurozone and let all the pigs, you know, Portugal, Italy, Spain, Greece, let them have the euro. We've got a bond bond revolt that's happening just because the euro itself is structurally unsound. There has been no currency union ever in history that survived without a fiscal union. And, you know, the odds say, and the bond market says, more importantly, this is not going to be the first.
All right, let's turn our attention to Chicago for a second. You're in Chicago, and we've had a big scandal, MF Global, and there's a couple of different moving parts to this scandal. You track this stuff real closely. Tell us your thoughts on the MF Global scandal.
Oh my gosh, MF Global. Well, you know, I'm looking at this, and I think we have a case of fraudulent conveyance. I mean, look at these guys. These guys gave themselves huge bonuses right before they declared bankruptcy. You know, meanwhile, you know, the Wall Street Journal and the SEC, everyone's focusing on, you know, all these little minor issues. I want to get straight to the heart of the matter. You know, you can't legislate against stupidity, but you can take action against fraudulence. And anyone that took that bonus money right before bankruptcy is guilty of accepting fraudulent conveyance, in my opinion. And anyone who organized it did even worse, is guilty of organizing fraudulent conveyance. We ought to have a criminal, not a civil investigation being undergone right now in the case of MF Global. And it goes straight to the top, if you ask me. But we need to get to that top. We need to say who knew what when, who authorized these bailouts, who participated in these bailouts, and throw criminal indictments against all of them.
Well, criminal indictment seems to be the last thing on anyone's agenda at this point. In the case of MF Global, there's a missing $600 or $700 million, and apparently the creditors of the company, including JP Morgan and Bank of America, are claiming that they've got claims ahead of the actual segregated accounts that MF Global is responsible for. So this has gone beyond just using fancy peekaboo accounting or off-balance sheet tricks or derivatives. This is all about just taking wealth out of people's accounts directly. I worked on Wall Street for many years. I mean, this is about as bad as you can get in terms of committing outright securities fraud. Have you seen anything as bad as this in the last 10 or 15 years?
I mean, this is organized across an entire company. You know, this goes beyond what Bernie Madoff did, if you ask me, well beyond it, in terms of, you know, all around, you know, the things these guys did. And look at where they all came from. You know, they all come from Goldman Sachs again. I mean, you know, and look who's heading up the ECB now, a Goldman Sachs guy. I mean, everywhere you look, you have Goldman Sachs. I mean, it is pretty amazing. Or Bank of America. They're all tied up in this. And it's going to continue as long as the SEC gives a slap on the wrist of all these people. You know, Citigroup was caught again. I don't even remember what it was. I mean, they're caught so many times. And the judge, you know, looked at the Citigroup attorney, and the attorney said, oh, well, he didn't deny guilt. But he didn't deny not doing it either. You know, so, and the SEC gives these slap on the hand judgments. Citigroup made something like, you know, $700 million off of this thing, and the fine was, what, a couple $100 million? I don't remember exactly. So, literally begging these corporations to do illegal things when the fines don't even cover what they make in doing the fraudulent activity. And we've got a culture of greed and arrogance that says no matter what they do, we're going to bail them out, we're going to give them a slap on the wrist, and we're going to stick the taxpayers with the results. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have already cost U.S. consumers close to $200 billion. When does it stop? And we keep bailing them out. Every quarter we throw another $9 or $10 billion at Fannie Mae. When does it stop, Max? When does it stop?
All right, so you're making the point that for every $1 billion of money stolen by Bank of America, Citigroup, other banks, they get fined maybe $150 or $200 million. So obviously, it behooves them to simply continue in that mode. There's nothing to stop them. Now, I wanted to make a comparison, though, with China, because you write about China often on your blog. You talk about how American labor might benefit if the wages in the U.S. were more competitive with China. In the same vein, would you also look for similar justice standards in America that we see in China? The reason I bring this up is that China caught a $100 million or so, or $1 billion Ponzi scheme recently, and they executed the perpetrator. Do you think this might be a good idea for the head of Citibank and Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan to be executed by the state?
I don't think we want to get to execution. I think we just want to find them, take away their power, and just take away all their money. We had the opportunity to do that. We had the opportunity to shut down Citigroup, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all of these banks, come in and replace them William Black style with someone who would adhere to the law and let banks be banks. Now, Citigroup is proclaiming now that banks are going to be banks. Does anyone believe them? I don't know. Why, with their track record, are any of these people believable? But I want to get back, if we can, to this technocrat thing and the rise of the technocrats, if we can, for a few minutes. Look at it. People ask me all the time, how are these technocrats, getting in power? Christina Romer came out the other day. She said she wanted the Fed to put a GDP target. Have a GDP. Good Lord. The Fed already has a dual mandate on jobs and on interest rates, on inflation that it can't meet. And now Christina Romer wants to turn it into a trifecta. So, if people are asking me, how do these economic illiterates get into a point of power? And they get into it to these points of power. Christina Romer was appointed to Obama's Council of Economic Experts because, not in spite of the fact that she's incompetent. They say the things that government wants to hear. Government wants to hear, we can have our cake and eat it too. We can print money and that's the solution. That's what government wants to hear. So they find these incompetent technocrats. They put these in positions in power, and that's just what's happening in the United States. It's the same thing happening in Europe, Max.
All right, Mike, we got to cut it off. That's all the time we have. We'll have you back on again soon. Thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Max, always a pleasure to be on with you.
All right, that's all the time we have. I want to thank my guest, Mike Shedlock. Just search Mitch in your favorite search engine, M-I-S-H. And they'll take you right to all of his great stuff. You can follow Mike or Mish on Twitter at MishGEA. You can follow us on Twitter at Keiser Report. You can also find us on Facebook. If you want to send me an email, please do so at keiserreport@rttv.ru. Until next time, this is Max Keiser saying bye, y'all.